Good afternoon, y'all. Welcome to another race in the Super Metroid multi-category tournament. This is, I believe, the first race of week 3. We are going to have a pretty nice race. I'm not sure what these two runners' records are, but it is going to be Azo versus Iora. They have pre-agreed to run any percent. We haven't got that on the layout because not sure if we have an admin here, actually. I may or may not be going rogue and letting it start on time. But I'm sure we'll get all that information in the coming minutes. So, of course, as this is week 3, there are 3 categories to choose from. 2 of them are going to be triple bingo and any percent, and a new addition, RBO. So low percent ice and RBO, 2 of the more difficult categories, are going to be added starting in week 3. And in this week, it is going to be RBO. Of course, they can't appear next to each other. They can't appear in the same week until playoffs. So you won't need to worry about having to race one of the 2 categories theoretically until you make it into the playoffs. In this case, like I said, both runners pre-agreed to run any percent, but had one of them not want to run RBO, they could have just vetoed it and would not have to worry about running a more difficult category. Regardless, both runners just going to be going through series escape. Nothing super interesting. Looks like they're both going to get pretty solid times. Azo with a pretty good 45, actually. Really nice series escape. And Iora not too far behind with a 44. So, good start for both. Unfortunately, it looks like Azo's timer may be inaccurate, since it looks like they set their timer to start automatically at the start of the race, and it looks like, or rather, they set the timer to start as they press start, but it looks like it did not trigger, so their timer is going to be a little bit delayed. Not to worry, though. It should be about synced up. Azo might be a little bit further ahead than he actually is, but regardless, it shouldn't matter too much by the end of the race. Looks like Iora is also having a bit of the internet issues, but we'll see if that gets resolved. Oh, I see. I don't think the runners should be synced up with timers, since, like I said, Azo's timer started late. But once again, it's only a few seconds difference. We'll see how much it matters in the end. I haven't actually looked at the runners' any percent PBs, but I believe they're both in the low 50 range, so this should be a close race, but not super close. Although there have been a number of races that have already been less than 10 seconds separating the 2 runners. I believe there's been 4 in just the first 2 weeks, so maybe I shouldn't speak so soon, but, you know. Yeah, chat mentioning that some of the times Azo is currently getting are not humanly possible had he started the timer right away. His timer did start about 10 seconds late, but it's not too bad. I think removing the sync would be fine. Just see what happens. I haven't been watching too closely, but I think once you remove the sync, they'll be in about the same spot. Azo going for that ledge grab climb. Of course, there are two methods of climbing up this room: the wall jump up the right wall and the ledge grabs up the middle. They are the same speed, so no need to worry about that. And we will be getting everything re-added in a second. We are just removing the delay on iora's stream since we delayed it a little bit too far. And I imagine we'll get the timer back on stream shortly. Oh, I should clarify. It's not iora's timer that's inaccurate. It's Azo's. This Azo started like 10, 12-ish seconds late. So if you could get Azo's timer removed and iora's timer back on the stream, that would be more accurate. Sorry, we're getting things a little bit set up still, but now it should be about accurate to what's actually happening. And Azo, presumably with a nice lead over iora, just completing Bomb Torizo as iora enters. Iora did have a bit of trouble getting up the climb, it looked like, so that might be accurate. We'll see. And iora not having a too bad Bomb Torizo fight. It is still, there's still plenty of game left. I believe both of our runners will be doing old route, since that is the easier and more traditional any percent route. And you can see the telltale sign of old route there from Azo damaging through these pirates instead of using missiles to get through them. Iora having a bit of trouble getting up Alcatraz, but he gets up nicely. Azo chat saying that he also had a little bit of trouble through Alcatraz, but not too badly. I'm not sure at what point Alcatraz actually becomes slower than just going through the normal way. Like how many times you need to mess up Alcatraz for it to be faster to just go up the vanilla route. But it's definitely more than a couple. You have to fail it a few times for it to be slower. Regardless, Azo doesn't mess up the early supers and is now on his way to Big Pink to get the charge beam and charge missiles. I do wonder what kind of safeties we will see. I imagine we just see the traditional safeties of technically high jump missile, but very few runners skip high jump missile. And also Kraid tank, which would bring your total E-tanks up to 4, just for extra survivability for pretty much the entire game. Of course, you only need 3 tanks, but that means that several parts of the game, including the final Mother Brain fight, are fairly risky. Anyways, while we have a moment of dead time, I will go ahead and actually look at the runner's any percent personal bests, if I can find them. I guess it'd be on the spreadsheet. I don't know why I didn't look there first. And you see Azo going down into lower red Brinstar, going to go down to fight Kraid, as you would do in old route any percent. I imagine we'll see Iora do the same in just a moment. Alright, so looks like Iora, like I said, had a high 50 time, or low 50 I should say, 52:35. Well, I don't see Azo's time? Am I missing it? Not sure. Oh, there it is. He's actually got a better time than I thought. He's got a low 47, actually. 47.18. I'm sure somebody in chat probably said that already. So he is definitely favored in a straight any percent race. And he is definitely living up to that at the moment, as he is pretty solidly ahead of Iora. Already entering Kraid at presumably about 9:45. Like I said, we can't tell exactly because of the timer issues. He started his timer late for anyone just joining, so we are just running off Iora's timer, and we aren't entirely sure that the streams are perfectly synced up. Really nice 2-missile 3-super quick kill for Azo as well. So despite a not fantastic early game by his standards, having a few mistakes in Alcatraz particularly, he's got Very at a really nice time. Seems we've got some cool guys in chat with the epic humorous spam that is extremely funny. We won't need to worry about that, though. Alright, so Iora gonna go for the 4 super missile quick kill using the charge beam to freeze Kraid's arm in place to make the shots easier, and gets it very nicely. Only about... The timer stopped for a bit there, not sure what happened there. But about 30 to 35 seconds behind Azo, who is going to be picking up that Kraid tank for that extra safety. No surprises there. And he is going to be heading down to Upper Norfair. Upper Norfair, of course, a very good spot for collecting items that help you on your journeys. Picking up that high jump and speed booster will allow a lot more movement options to Samus, and Wave Beam allows her to defeat most of the early bosses just by itself using the X Factor. So in Old Route, you will see runners go collect all those items and then leave to finish off Wreck Ship and Meridia before going down to Lower Norfair. Once again, there's a bit of dead time as there isn't too much action going on stream. Most of the strats being used are fairly simple, just jumping across the rooms. So, hope everyone in chat's having a good day. I imagine we're going to be seeing a lot of any percent this week in the multi-category tournament, as the 2 other categories, RBO and Triple Bingo, are both very highly vetoed. So there will be more than a few any percent races. We will see how many runners will be able to run other categories. Yes, the category is any percent. You can see in the bottom right the category that is currently being run. See Azo actually mockballing down Speed Booster. I haven't been watching his arm pumping, but it tells me that he might have his control set up to one of his shoulder buttons not being an angle button, or an angle aim. Something, if you watched Behemoth, he doesn't actively run the game at the moment, but he used to do because he had his L button set to run, I believe. So he would mockball down the speed booster hallway because he couldn't get the full bonus from arm pumping. It is technically faster to mockball than it is to run without arm pumping, but it is slightly faster to run with arm pumping than to mockball. So that's what you usually see, but for Behemoth, who could only mock or only arm pump half as effectively, or about 2/3 as effectively, since arm pumping works when you stop angling as well. But since he could only arm pump 2/3 as effectively, he would just mockball down the room, and it would be about the same speed. No, it is not illegal to use non-SNES controllers because it is legal to use emulator. You see Iora in the bottom right of his capture with a frame rate counter, which I'm not sure which emulator that is. I think it's BeastNess. I'm not sure though. But regardless, he is not using original hardware, which is perfectly fine for the tournament. And I don't think most emulators are slower than the original hardware, so you won't need to worry about that either. Speaking of frame rate, he gets a nice laggy room there through single chamber. There were a lot of enemies spawned, so a lot of lag, but he's okay. Azo has finished his upper Norfair cleanup, got all those items I talked about earlier, the high jump, wave, and speed booster, and he's going to be heading up to the wrecked ship, as well as taking a quick detour at Alpha Power Bombs in order to pick up his first Power Bomb pack. You see Iora not too far behind. He's also got all of the items from Upper Norfair. There is one more item in Upper Norfair, not counting Crocmire, the Ice Beam, which you will see the runners be picking up on their way to Lower Norfair. This is, of course, because just Wave Beam allows you to defeat all the bosses very quickly, and picking up Ice Beam now is more of a safety than anything. You see why some people choose to pick up Ice Beam at the beginning right here for Azo, having a bit of trouble getting up Red Tower. How you're intended to get across this, or get up this, I should say, is you need to use the Ice Beam to freeze the... I'm not sure, what are those enemies called? Rippers, I think? Yeah, Rippers. But you freeze the Rippers and use them as platforms in order to make it up. Without Ice Beam, you need to do what Azo did and use a shot to clear the block, and then wall jump up through the gap, which Azo had a little bit of trouble doing, but he has made it through and gotten those power bombs. And you actually see Iora picking up that Ice Beam. So he is going to have that added safety. Of course, in order to do optimal boss strategies, you will need to turn off the Ice Beam for Phantoon, Batoon, and Dragon. Looks like he missed the Mock Ball out, so he will need to bomb this bomb block right above him. So what you can actually do for this is you can hold a charge shot and then morph and hold down. This will cause your bomb spread to go farther than normal if you hold it down until the bomb spread comes out automatically, and that will actually break the block, which you see on Iora's stream. He gets it nicely. That is extremely easy. Just hold down and hold shot, and you will drop the bombs in such a way that will break the bomb block above you. Speaking of above you, Azo accidentally sparking into the ceiling. Luckily with that extra E-Tank, he's got plenty of HP, but had he not had that E-Tank, he would be a little bit sketchy. You generally want to have about 100 entering Phantoon, and Azo would be at 85 without that extra tank He is at 185 instead, which is pretty free, although Phantoon can troll you sometimes. Needs to wait for this ghost to get out of the way. And he is off to Phantoon. Doesn't quite get the speedball into the area where the door is, but that's alright. And so Azo is going to be doing the X Factor strat on Phantoon. Gets a mid, I believe that was, and a great first X Factor. Looks like he's going to Doppler second round as well. I'll let Phantoon go off screen. He's still on the stream. And a very nice mid-fast Phantoon for Azo. That is... He's had a not super clean run, but that is definitely going to be something he's happy about. As Phantoon is gone in just a matter of seconds. Meanwhile, Iora has made it to the Alpha Power Bombs. Is having a bit of trouble getting through this room. Doesn't get the D-boosts across the room, so has to take it very slow in order to not get eaten by too many vile plumes. But he's not too bad. Now Azo making it through the wrecked ship. Looks like he's gonna... He attempted for the speed keep attic strat, but unfortunately didn't quite get the... Whoa. He's messed up a few things, actually. But he didn't quite get the blue suit before he ran into the Key Hunter. So he just ran straight into the Key Hunter and wasn't able to get through them. So unfortunately, had to do a bit of a backup and then missed his backup spark, so had to do it again. But not too bad for him. Meanwhile, Iora picked up the Moat Missile. Not totally sure if it was intentional, but he did pick it up, and now he is going to be headed into the wrecked ship himself. We'll see if he leaves Ice Beam on for Phantoon and just goes for missiles, or if he is going to turn it off. Azo has made it to the bowling statue. You see a nice little thing there from Iora. Pretty nice farming strat. You can actually farm those little atomics. I don't know if those are atomics, but I always call them atomics. But you can farm the little atomics outside of Phantoon. They usually drop big health, so you can get up to 40 health right before Phantoon, which is a really nice safety farm that some people might not know about. Regardless, Azo getting his gravity suit at about the same time Iora starts up the Phantoon fight. So Iora is about a whole wreck ship behind Azo. It looks like Iora is going to use the X Factor strats. Doesn't quite land it though. Only lands one X Factor particle. So only about 450 damage done to Phantoon instead of the full 1350 from a full X Factor. Which means he's gonna have to do more damage. Looks like he's gonna go for a second X Factor here. Off of Phantoon reappearing. And this one is going to be better. He does manage to connect all 4 particles, so Phantoon is very close to death. I believe he only needs 1 missile and 1 super. I don't know if Iora knows that because it doesn't have missiles selected, but if he just supers Phantoon, he should be dead, and there he goes. Nice backup fight from Iora. Unfortunately, his ammo is not looking great, and he doesn't get a ton of super missile drops from Phantoon. Does get plenty of power bombs though, so won't need to worry about that. Meanwhile, Azo making his way into Meridia. Going to be fighting Batoon and Dragon, and then picking up Space Jump and the Plasma Beam to increase his movement and weaponry even further before fighting Ridley and Mother Brain. Of course, having Plasma Beam drastically increases your damage on both Ridley and Mother Brain, so it is worth the time investment to go get, as long as you haven't fought Ridley already once you approach the area. Also gonna set up for this room. Gonna use that speed echoes to... not speed echoes. I guess that's speed echoes. I don't really know. He uses the fast to get through the blocks. So he begins his Batoon fight, gets a nice X Factor. Not quite a one round, just one super missile short, and kills Batoon near the top of the screen, which actually does lose a little bit of time, as you need to wait for all of his pieces to fall to the floor before he officially dies. But does have a pretty nice Batoon fight. And he's going to pick up his 4th E-Tank here after Batoon, and going to set up for... we'll see if he goes for the full halfie. Looks like he's going to farm before Dragon. Not sure what exactly he's farming for. He had full HP. Guess he just wants more super missiles. Going to set up for the full halfie. We'll see if he can get it. Not quite. Those wall jumps were pretty slow, and it took him a while to actually get to the wall. So he's just gonna jump across the Coliseum. Not the worst thing ever. And meanwhile, Iora going to get that gravity suit. And Azo is heading into Dragon. I am seeing in SRL that Iora is having some controller issues, saying that he is dropping some inputs. So that is definitely a bit unfortunate. You never want to have technical difficulties in a race, but he is committed to finishing, he says, so you won't need to worry about that. Azo getting a really nice opening on Dragon, it looked like. Not quite a 2-spark, didn't quite hit Dragon with enough ammo, but it looks like he will get the 3-spark. Spark's just a bit too early, didn't quite make it through all of Dragon's hitboxes. You can actually hit up to 2 of Dragon's hitboxes if you spark optimally at about her forehead. You hit her head hitbox and her chest hitbox. Fortunately, Azo didn't quite hit it, but just finished the fight off with a couple of missiles and is going to collect his space jump. Unfortunately, people who may have watched some any percent runs before know that if you kill Dragon with a spark, you do get a blue suit, which allows you to spark across Coliseum the other way. Unfortunately, Azo did not get that as he finished the fight off with missiles, so he's just going to have to space jump across. This isn't nearly as time-consuming as it would be a new route, since you have the space jump, but it is a minor time loss nonetheless. Regardless, he's definitely making a solid pace at the moment as he heads over to the plasma beam. Iora is entering Meridian and going through what we just saw Azo go through with Botwoon and Dragon. We'll see Azo do a pretty nice strat to kill all of the pirates in the plasma beam room shortly. Unfortunately, he actually de-equips power bombs. We'll see if he can re-equip those fast enough, which he does. But that power bomb will actually damage the pirates on the wall, so he will only need one shot to damage them instead of two. So he is able to clear through all the enemies in this room much faster than he would be able to otherwise. And he gets the plasma beam, gets through the room very nicely. I did not see if Iora landed the X Factor, but it doesn't look like he did. He's actually very low. He's just gonna turn on Ice Beam to do extra damage to Botwoon. Needs to dodge this acid from Botwoon. He's gonna be okay as soon as he gets Botwoon to go through his pattern of just moving quickly around the room, since he is safe in this little corner from any of Botwoon's movement patterns. Looks like he's in it now. So it's just a matter of shooting Botwoon as much as he can without accidentally jumping into his hitbox. A little bit sketchy and a little bit slow, but Iora is gonna get through the fight no problem. And Botwoon is down. Iora actually skipping the Botwoon E-Tank. That's very interesting. He did get health bombed by Botwoon and took the farm afterwards, so he's not too bad on HP, but that's a very interesting non-item pickup. We'll see if he picks up another safety E-Tank, potentially behind Ridley, or the Firefly E-Tank. We will see. Meanwhile, Azo has made his way back into Norfair, picked up the Ice Beam. Of course, Iora won't need to pick up the Ice Beam as he goes into Norfair for the second time, since he already has it. So that is technically some time save he has over Azo, who is going to opt to do the southern route down to Lower Norfair. Going to be going by Crocomire. I don't think he'll be fighting Crocomire, but you never know. Gets a nice jump through the door. That is fairly tricky, but getting it saves a lot of time and makes Southern Route slightly faster than Northern Route, which would just to go to Bubble Mountain through Frog Speedway. Ooh, Iora lined up I believe killing Shine Spark on Dragon, but unfortunately sparked into the ceiling. Does finish off the fight with a few super missiles though, so he's not too bad for himself as long as he gets some super drops back. Which he does. Pretty good drops from Dragon, actually. As Iora is going to be picking up his space jump. Yeah, chat pointing out that Iora is probably going to be going for the Ridley E-Tank, which I would have to agree with. It seems like the most obvious choice. Although he might just opt to go for 3 tank, we'll see. Azo also mentioning in SRL that he's also having some controller issues, particularly with his D-pad. Could explain a couple of the missed sparks that we've seen so far, as that is definitely not something that feels good, missing sparks because your D-pad misinputs. Super Nintendo controller D-pads can be a little bit finicky like that, but either way, Azo's not having a too bad pace for himself. He's running about a 50 flat pace, I would say, right now, depending on how fast Lower Norfair is. And also depending on how accurate iora's timer is for him. Of course, for those of you just joining, his timer was set to start when he started the game, but it didn't go off, so we have removed his timer from the display to avoid confusion. And we are just going off of iora's timer. Azo actually gets stuck in the acid. Luckily, he's got full HP, so he's not worried, but that is a pretty goofy thing that can happen if you go through that platform and don't make it back up before the platform descends. Really nice metal pirate room, though, to make up for it. He's going to be heading to Ridley at about 36 flat. Gets a nice opening shot. Gets to connect that shot with Ridley while charging another shot. Able to do damage slightly faster. And now just going to be taking the fight fairly safe, leaving Ridley in this pogo pattern and standing on the edge of the platform, shooting Ridley. Pretty well-known strat for beating Ridley. Looks like he's got Ridley down to just 5 shots remaining. And Ridley should be dead, just needs to be picked up. And a very nice Ridley grab from Azo. Not the cleanest Ridley fight, but definitely good enough for a raid. Yes, this category is any percent. Would like to once again direct your eyes to the bottom right for future reference. You can see the category there. Every race. Unless we lie to you, which could happen. You can't trust anyone, after all. Anyways, Azo gonna be beginning his Lower Norfair escape as Iora begins his descent into Lower Norfair. Unfortunately, we won't be seeing any high fives, but we will be seeing Iora do the northern route to Lower Norfair. So you see entering Bubble Mountain from the Frog Speedway and then going from there to Lower Norfair. The southern route is slightly faster if you get all of the jumps through the rooms and get the moonfall, but otherwise they are about the same speed. Although northern route does have more door transitions that you need to align, so if you don't have experience doing that, you can lose a lot of invisible time going that route. As I'm going to take this last room in the Lower Norfair escape fairly safely, just going to use Plasma Beam to shoot the enemies through the wall. And is going to be making his way out of Lower Norfair. Meanwhile, we see Iora doesn't even look like he's going for fast pillars, which I believe we saw Azo miss that as well. Had to use power bombs to get across, but luckily he had plenty. Iora, though, is actually a power bomb short. He may have to pick up the power bombs of shame in order to make it down to Ridley. We'll see what he decides to do. He could also pick up Firefly E-Tank and farm power bombs while he goes down there. So we'll see if he does that too. But I imagine he will not. He actually farmed most of the enemies in the room just to try to get a power bomb drop, but to no avail, as the enemies in Lower Norfair are fairly stingy when it comes to drops. I believe they all have just a 2% chance to drop a power bomb. I know the Disgigas have a 2% chance. I actually don't know if the Pirates have a chance at all. Looks like Iora is just going to take his chances, though. He's going to need a power bomb to open this power bomb door that he's coming up to, and then we'll need another power bomb to break the power bomb blocks in Wasteland. So looks like he will be picking up the extra power bomb pack right next to Wasteland after all. Unless he gets the 2% drop, which he does. Actually does get the drop from the Disgiga, so he won't need to pick it up after all. Nice stroke of RNG there for Iora. Meanwhile, Azo heading up to G4 is running still about a 50 flat, maybe a low 49, depending on Torian. So very solid pace for a race setting, for sure. Unfortunately, his criteria movement hasn't been super clean. Got caught on the door entering landing site, and then caught on the door leaving landing site. But still making pretty good pace. Really nice strat to get through Terminator. Meanwhile, Iora is fighting Ridley. Unfortunately for him, Ridley isn't giving him the nice easy pogo pattern that he was giving Azo, but instead just gonna swoop around the room for a bit. He actually looked like he was gonna start a pogo pattern there, but Iora canceled him out of it with his movement. This is a little bit sketchy. He's only got 3 E-Tanks, so if he can't take too many hits from Ridley. You see him giving the pogo pattern now, although Iora's still taking a lot of damage. Ridley's not quite dead yet, I don't think. Oh no. Oh no. So, unfortunately, I don't know if Ridley was dead yet, but either way, Iora didn't quite get grabbed by Ridley, so he did take the damage for coming in contact with Ridley's body, and that was enough to kill him. And he has officially forfeited in SRL with the comment, F you, Ridley. And I would have to agree with that. Definitely an unfortunate way for his week 3 to end. Now it is up to Biazzo to finish the run. We'll see if he decides to do a save before Mother Brain, or he just goes all out to try to get that sub 50. Unfortunately, we don't actually have any timer at all now because Iora stopped his, so we kind of have to guess where Azo is. We won't really know until the final escape. If we could get Azo's timer back on stream, his time's pretty accurate. It's about 12 seconds behind. But just so we have some kind of timer. Meanwhile, he's going for the baby skip. That was a bit of a sketchy jump, and then he landed on the enemy particles, so had a really close encounter with the baby, but is going to get the baby skip after a few extra jumps to correct himself, and he's going to be just fine. Now, Biazzo does know that Iora forfeit. He did comment in SRL, and so he is just going to take the safety save. No surprises there. He wants to make sure that he finishes and moves on. And with the victory, Azo is going to be moving to... Hold on, let me find it. Not sure. Looks like Biazzo is going to be moving to 1 and 2 with the victory. Unfortunately, had a rough first matchup against Zenny and lost the round 2 matchup against Krokemeyer by just 6 seconds. So that is definitely a tragic way to lose by such a small amount. But of course, he is a solid runner, and he is showing it here, having a just over 50 pace, as long as he doesn't take a death to Mother Brain. Almost got hit by that catch-up, but luckily, I think he had iframes from getting hit by another of Mother Brain's attacks, so he's just fine. And the rest of the game is but a formality. We'll see if he saves the animals just to show off, since his time doesn't really matter at this point. So like I said, Azo going to be moving on to 1 and 2 in the tournaments. Iora, unfortunately, going to be moving on to 0 and 3, which I don't know if that's possible to make playoffs from a 3 and 3 record theoretically, but there's still plenty of races to go. This is, of course, a fun tournament. Even if you aren't necessarily winning, it is definitely fun to experience racing with the Super Metroid community. And I'm sure Iora won't be too disappointed being one of the lower seeded runners to enter the tournament. Yeah, Iora died to Ridley at... I believe Ridley was dead when he died too, so that makes it extra rough. Apparently, Azo got rainbow beamed at about 47.18 according to SRL, so that's better than I expected, actually. Guess we'll just have to wait and see what the final time is. So I think what happened for Ridley actually was, if you do a spin jump, Ridley will execute another attack, even if he's dead. So I think that may have happened for Iora. Not totally sure, I would have to watch it back, but it is definitely a possibility. So having a really clean escape so far. Really nice lead ox room. It's the final moonfall of the game. It's a really nice behemoth spark as well. And don't want to spoil too much, but he has done in first place with an official SRL time of 50 minutes and 3 seconds. And I think we're seeing why now, as he is having some fun. Debating on saving the animals. Threw away the sub 50 pace, but he's got plenty of those already. Just does some goofing off at the end. We've all been there. And he is going to finish up in first. And we'll see if we can get him in for an interview. Him or Iora. I think the bot should send them an interview invite automatically. Alright, it looks like neither runner is going to be joining for an interview, so that is going to be it for us. If you're still craving some multi-category tournament action, I've got great news for you, because we've got a race coming up in 10 minutes on SpeedGaming 2 between Astor and Magoo, I believe. I might have seen that. Yeah, Astor versus Magoo in 10 minutes on SpeedGaming 2. And we've got a couple more races today. We actually have 2 at 8 p.m. Croquemire versus Maniacal on SpeedGaming 2. And Mass Hysteria versus French Lightning John on SpeedGaming 6. And then at 9:30, we have one more race. Lomian Jones versus 64-Bit Link back here on SpeedGaming. So if you still want some more Super Metroid races, we've got plenty of those. But until then, be sure to follow Azo and Iora, and maybe me. You don't have to, though. That's your choice. And we will see you in like 7 minutes. Whenever the next race starts. It might be delayed. I don't know.